If your child does not attend grade R, you could end up in prison for up to 12 months. Now, that's contained in the Basic Education Laws Amendment Bill that is open for public comment. It proposes that compulsory learning begin from grade R and not 1. The bill also places a duty on principals to act if pupils are not at school for 3 days. It's hoped this will address the high dropout rate. Let's discuss this with education expert Mary Metcalfe. She's from the University of Johannesburg. Good afternoon and thank you for your time, Mary. Very progressive move, to make it compulsory to start school at grade R. But before we get to the bill itself or the proposals, talk to me on what was found to be the disadvantages of having children only starting school in grade 1.
Well, before I can answer that question, I have to say that I think that the interpretation that schooling is compulsory from the age of 4 is incorrect, and I can see why that impression has been created, because in the very brief introduction to the bill it says compulsory, but when you look at the text it's saying that the admission age is grade 4. Is 4 years old. The admission to grade R is 4. But the compulsory age remains the year in which you turn 7. So it is an unfortunate misunderstanding in my view, because it means that people are reading the opening comments to the draft bill without looking at the text. However, the progressive move to address ECD by ensuring that more children have access to both school-based ECD and community-based ECD is indeed correct, as you say. And the advantages are that learners will have opportunities to be in structured learning environments where they will be able, through the learning activities provided either in community centres or in school, to develop the cognitive skills to prepare them for school. This is such a sensitive age, the early childhood years from 0 to 7 or 9, as some people say, and the more that we can make sure that children are healthy, cognitively stimulated, the better for our country.
But then, with most parents, some of them have always held the view that you don't want to wear out the children too early. I know it's probably the most primitive view, but there has been that position by some parents that they would prefer to take their children to school from the age 5. But you're saying, nevertheless, that there will be no penalties as per this draft proposal, that in this instance it is only compulsory, like you say, from 7 years of age, but beneficial for them to enter the formal schooling system of a sort a bit earlier for that cognitive stimulation.
Thank you. And I love that you've used the word formal, because we have a notion of schools being very formal places, desks in rows, the teacher moving around and instructing. In fact, a proper conception of early childhood development is it's much more informal, it's much more fun related, it's much more giving learners the opportunity to interact socially and to discover that learning in an environment of care and support can be pleasurable and will help them with their development.
So learning through play, if you will. But then the bill itself, it also states that principals will have to communicate with parents if a child is absent for 3 days. Was this not always the case if parents didn't initiate some form of communication on the child's absence?
I am hoping that the public consultation process will change this, because as you say, parents do normally communicate with the school if the child is sick, or if the child is away and can't attend school. One would hope that they would. What I hope changes is that instead of setting 3 days as the limit, we need to understand that one of the major challenges we have to address is the question of learner dropout. And learner dropout happens incrementally over time as the learner becomes disengaged from the process of schooling and participation in schooling. So what we need principals to do is not limit themselves to the 3 days, but to note the the patterns of attendance for each learner and which learners, particularly in high school, are increasingly not attending school, and they need to take action to ensure that learners don't drop out, that the challenges that the learners are experiencing in school or out of school that are making them attend periodically are addressed. We have to do this because we have to address the very high dropout rate, and it's been made worse under COVID.
Does the bill specifically state that this remains the responsibility of the principal? Because we would know that a principal, if nothing else, would be an overseer of various departments. So you'd have the teachers that would deal with the children on a daily. So would the responsibility solely lie with the principal in this respect? Or in essence, the teachers would then have to note to ensure that they arrest any problem that could eventually lead to some sort of dropout?
Well, there's two answers to that question. Firstly, when the bill mentions the principal, that's the person who's the executive authority, if you call it, at the school. And he or she will need to make sure that all of the teachers are keeping him informed, and that this is a collective responsibility. One person can't do it. But secondly, all schools are meant to be using the South African School Administration Management System, which is within the computers that most schools have for this purpose. And that enables either the teachers or the school clerk, where the schools have a school clerk, to enter the attendance data on a daily basis. And the more that we use these kinds of management tools, the easier it will be for the school collectively, led by the principal, to monitor. Where that's not working, it really is the important function of the school to care about the learners who are not attending and to take note. And I would love to see this as a standing item in all staff meetings.
Then just take us through the other proposals within the bill. I know the most contentious one is the one about the conditions within which alcohol can be brought into the school premises. It's divided many. What do you make of that one?
Well, I think that this has been misunderstood in the press and has been sensationalized. There's a position of the DBE, and they've just issued a statement on this, that the minister has a zero-tolerance approach against alcohol in schools. And what the bill is trying to do is to regulate the conditions under which a governing body may allow the use of alcohol for fundraising activities or when the school is being used for a private function like a wedding. So this is no intention to say alcohol is going to be sold at schools. No. It's regulating it with a zero-tolerance approach to alcohol in school hours, is zero tolerance to anything other than carefully controlled governing body management.
I must say I was also rather confused, because what I remembered is if we have any of our children's events, we would go to the school. If it's a school fete, they would even have a beer tent on that specific day, but obviously it's for the adults that would be there to indulge. But I suppose, like you say, maybe there was some sort of misinterpretation. But thank you very much for your time, Professor. That's Professor Mary Metcalfe from the University of Johannesburg.